There are two kind of foundational experiences for me that shape a lot of my own vision of a theology of migration, and a lot of it I connect with the Eucharist. And the first happened probably in 2001 when I was asked to join the U.S. bishops at a mass at the border outside of El Paso. And what they did was they set up a mass so that half the community was in Mexico and half the community was in the United States, and they actually joined the altar at the wall. So actually the altar was in between the, if you will, the border wall. And so it really asks this question of what does the Eucharist mean in the midst of this reality? And I think actually it's a very important piece because migration is really defined by otherness right now. Is that the big overarching question is who is that which I describe as other, or that person which I describe as other. And it's really where a lot of this stuff really breaks down. So it doesn't really matter what the migration in particular is, that migration is defined by and large by otherness. But the Eucharist is really about oneness. And so really the whole vision of the Eucharist, and really a theological vision of a Eucharistic understanding of migration, is really about moving from otherness to oneness. The other place where this really came into focus was when Pope Francis made his first pastoral visit outside of the Vatican after he was elected. So it's a rather interesting question of, if you were Pope, what's the first place you would go to? And it's interesting that he went to a place that was completely insignificant. No one even knew about it. It was basically a rock in the middle of the Mediterranean. But it was really, his visit was prompted by a story that he'd heard, which was a group of migrants were fleeing the Libyan coast, and actually en route their boat collapsed. And when it did, about 7 people survived of the hundreds of people that were on this boat. But they survived by clinging onto a fishing net. And so, but when the fishermen to whom these nets belonged saw these migrants, instead of saving them, they actually cut their nets and they sent them to die in the ocean depths. Pope Francis was so moved by this, but that within 8 days he flew down to the island of Lampedusa. He celebrated a mass in the open air next to a boat graveyard, and he used a chalice that was made from the remains of a downed refugee boat. So it's really another part of our research, as we've been asking, what does it mean when the Pope uses a chalice made from a refugee boat in the context of the Eucharist? And all of this, I think, has something to say about who God is, who we are, and how we relate to one another.